Please welcome the Program Director of ISWA Scholarship Program, Tim Bouldry.
Hi everybody, it's an honor to be here today. And I was just thinking this week about my favorite time of the year. And the first thing that came up was Christmas. And then I started thinking about World Congress. And then I was trying to compare the two, which do I love more? So you guys are like up there with Santa Claus right now with me. But not just that, you guys replied to my emails, so I think I like you guys a little bit more. Anyways, on a serious note, I wanted to just take about 10 seconds to think about all the people that are affected by the natural disasters, whether they're hurricanes or flooding, mudslides or earthquakes. And we all come from a specialty in this field, so I think it would be a good idea to just send them our positive energy. And if we just take 10 seconds, think about love, think about strength, and think about sending it out to them. We'll start right now. Thank you. I hope you really did that with me. And now I have a gift for you. I have a song that the kids wrote from La Chureca. These are the kids that work at a dump site that I live next to in Nicaragua. They wrote this song while they were living inside the trash dump, and it's actually pretty impressive. It has an upbeat kind of groove to it, but it has a very sour note, and I'd like to play it for you right now. And actually, the introduction to this will be Melkin. He's acting as my assistant right now for the ISWA Scholarship Program.
Que nosotros hicimos chavalos pequeños en la Chureca, y dice así: Dios mío, tú creaste todo, también a los niños, pero este ambiente nos da mucho fastidio, ya mi corazón lo tiene entristecido. Quisiera que ustedes a mí también me escucharan, para que el gobierno ya despertara, y este basurero de una vez se acabara.
Este trabajo muy duro nos tiene muy angustiados, y nuestro destino es tan malo que nuestros seres churequeando hay muertos han quedado. De este trabajo comemos y bebemos, y señora les digo para dónde cogemos. Quisiera que todo esto solo fuera un sueño, porque siendo niño aún soy muy pequeño. Esta situación nos ha robado nuestros sueños. Dios mío, tú creaste todo, vela por los niños, vela por aquellos que no tienen cariño, vela por la comunidad de los Martínez.
Creen que porque vivimos en la Chureca no tenemos derechos, solo por eso vienen aquí a tirar sus desechos.
Lo que queremos es una casa con buenos techos, no más mentiras, queremos los hechos.
Though it's an upbeat song, there's some powerful words going on, and I just wanted to point some out. I wanted the media to listen to me so that the government would wake up and the garbage dump would one day be over. I wish that all of this was only a nightmare, because this situation has stolen our dreams. What we want is good ceilings, no more lies. We want what echoes. And as you can see, what they're asking for is change. We come to World Congress from all parts of the world to offer wide range and very diverse talents. Even though we all offer something very unique from one another, our greatest learning comes from when we share the knowledge from each other. And for one purpose, for change. We are the people that are taking responsibility for our planet, our animals, our neighbors, and nature. Of course, we can argue about changing politics and stopping corruption and poverty, but I believe in order to really move forward, we must agree on changing minds. Mental poverty does not only occur with the poor. Ignorance stretches across all economical spectrums of humanity. So the responsibility we share is to educate one another in our own personal field and to open each other's minds and to make a cleaner, smarter future for our children and the next generation. I proudly stand here because of ISWA and SWANA, and I want to extend a huge thank you for all the support you've given me and the extra meaning you give to my work. But I also want to thank everybody else here today, because every day I meet someone that I never knew that was doing something really inspiring to me. And I say that because 9 years ago, as a young documentary photographer, I was wandering around Central America looking for something to photograph. And when I saw the children working in the trash dump, that's when everything changed for me. And in fact, I have the original photo, the very first photo I ever took. This is Felix and Jose. And of course, this is many years ago. Now their little brother is named after me, Timoteo. And, I remember taking this picture because in that moment, I felt my future. I felt something change and shift inside my body chemistry. And I knew that this was the road that I was going to follow. And I think that's one of the inspiring things for me about children, is that they teach me my road. I feel like sometimes I get more from them than they get from me. And I think that's what it is all about, is sharing each other so that you figure out your paths and your roads and figure it out together. I really wanted to photograph people, I wanted to photograph the environment, but larger than that, I wanted to photograph change, and I wanted to see how things can change in places like this. And I'm the first to tell you that working in the community, living in a dump site is very, very difficult. It's not easy. I deal with all of the same situations, of course from my own side, but sociologically with them, suicide, death. Let's see, I wrote a list here of all of them. But many of these things I have to go through with them. I'm sorry, I get a little emotional when I start thinking about the faces and the stories, and especially when I see my kids up on a big screen like that. And it just makes me want to, it makes me proud, and it makes me want to bring it back to them and show them how important they are. And I think that was the biggest part of my work, was always to go back and look for the same kids and follow up on them. So my point of all of this is that I thank you for helping me give purpose to my work and to be able to get this far just by taking pictures and following some people who I love. Thank you. Next, I'm going to show you, I'm going to run through a bunch of trash dumps, and I divided these up into reasons people migrate to open dump sites and its effects. This first one is in Venezuela. This is an area called Puerto Ordaz. It's an area called Cambalache. It's the name of the dump site. The community I focused on was this indigenous tribe called WAWAU, and they migrated from the jungle to the trash dump. And they did this for clothes, and they did this to repurpose items. They found a conflict when they arrived to the trash dump because there were the local city people already informally recycling there. And this caused violence between the two groups. So they actually live a little bit further outside the zone of the trash dump. Here you can see, I use these images to show you some of the malnutrition that you might find in an area like this. And then these are some more images from the same place. It's a very polluted area because nearby there is an aluminum factory. There's a lot of, it's a big industry there for metal. And the byproduct of aluminum is red mud. And I'll come back to that later in 1 second. Here's an example of how they repurpose the items. So this boy is using a refrigerator door as a flotational device, and there the refrigerator is being used as a closet. So they don't have the knowledge to repair or resell these items. They just bring them to their home, and they repurpose them however they can. Now, this shows you how they work as a group. You have to remember this is a tribe. So when I came there as a foreigner, I basically had to say to them, take me to your leader. And they took me to, the chief. And then I have to talk to the chief about what I'm doing there, why I'm there, why I want to spend a week with them. And then he has to tell the tribe that, he's going to be with us, he's friendly, everything's good. So they really work as a group, and they will all go to the dump together, and they'll come back together in trucks. And then some people start cooking, and then everyone else goes down to the Orinoco River together to bathe together. It's like a ritual, and here they are bathing here. But there's a lot of news about this red mud that's overflowing and apparently going into the Orinoco River where they bathe and they also fish. If you look at Google Maps, you can see the red mud plant and how large it is just on Google Maps. This is Haiti. In Haiti, there's a large principal dump site called Trutière, and I heard there's a second one, but I'm not sure. I photographed this in 2012. And besides that, you basically have dumpings. So in Haiti, it's very disorganized, and local people kind of agree where trash goes, and then that trash, pollutes everything around them. It's not treated properly. And Trutière is the best example of a landfill trash dump type place. The top, all of this is Trutière, and in the top you see like a mountain. That mountain is all the rubble from the homes that were lost from the earthquake. So here, an earthquake increased the informal sector from 200 to 2,000 people. So that's a significant change, all because of an earthquake. This man, Jean, I had spoken to him. He spoke perfect English, and he was in college, and he lost his family, and he lost his school, his house, everything. And when you're thinking day to day at that point, he had come here to recycle. He would be a great scholarship kid if I had a connection in Haiti. And then I put this photo up there because he's lifting up flour. I mean, can you imagine going into a trash dump? I've seen people pick out food and leftovers, but to pick up flour to cook with, I think is pretty extreme. And you can't see it in the frame, but there's like a pig up there too. Everything really gets mixed together. These are examples in Jacmel, outside of Trutière, where you're going to find more trash that's open dumpings. And here, it's like too big to fit everything inside my frame. But basically, everyone just throws the trash over there. And then when it's high tide, the water comes up, mixes with the trash, carries the trash to the bay, where everybody is, fishing. And then it washes to the beach. And then these kids are proudly recycling, and it looks like a trash dump, but that's actually a beach. This is in various dump sites in Jordan, and every time I pick a new place, I try to find a new continent, a new culture, and a new reason. So this reason was really about the refugees. I will say that in Jordan, everything was very organized, and the informal sector is very, very controlled and at a minimal, and there's contractors at all of the dump sites. I would imagine like in Iraq or a country like that, it's much worse. But I did find people from the Surat refugee camp, and what they would do is look for permits. And when they get the permit, they come to the dump to recycle. This one is on the Syrian border. You can actually see the Syrian dump site from the Jordanian border. But it's just left behind there. And this boy, his father goes from the Surat refugee camp, and this is actually the tents that they use. They brought a tent. They get a permit for 2 weeks. He brings his 3 sons, and they work in the dump site for 2 weeks, living there, and then they go back to the refugee camp and wait for another permit. Now, this is kind of my second home now in Nicaragua, and here is an example of the way that the people were living in the dump before, and then the Spanish government came and they gave them homes. And I would give the project like a B-, C+, I don't know. There's a plant that provided jobs, but it didn't provide enough jobs, and people are making a little bit less money. And also, first of all, La Churreca happened because of an earthquake in 1972. And then when the project started, there was a big hurricane. So you have an earthquake and a hurricane creating a larger informal sector. And when the hurricane happened, they moved them into the same barrio that they created for the people from La Chureca. And what happened is that they don't have jobs. So it's wonderful that they can receive a home rather than live inside plastic. But they didn't receive a job, so they go to La Chureca to recycle. And now they're trying to close off La Chureca with the police, and there's a lot of conflict going on between the two. And then this is more examples. This is actually ISWA mom. I didn't know it was her until this past year. I took this photo like in 2009. I was just going through old photos, and I was like, oh my God, is that you, Marcia? And then this is the plant, to give you an example of how they're recycling inside. And then this is the sister dump site of La Chureca, which is Nueva Vida. We have an ISWA kid here, Josefina, and this is when I first got to know who she was. And then this just more illustrates this dump site. And again, a lot of people came to this dump site because of Hurricane Mitch, and then later in Hurricane, there was like a later hurricane, I can't remember the name of it. In Honduras, I had been to the two major cities. The thing that stood out differently about this dump site is that the Mata Salvatrucha is a very big gang. They control the dump site. So what they do is they are the highest bidder for the materials, and so they gain possession of the land. And for that, they are able to do their big drug deals, weapon deals, and even if they need to take care of somebody, they can put them in a dump. And I know all this from interviewing both places that are very separate from each other, but also because a pastor works for them, and he tells me all stories, like sometimes you'll see a very expensive truck go up to the dump, you know, like something one of us might own, and you know that there's something shady going on up there at that moment. And I also wanted to show you that they have a medical sector, and it's all medical waste, and basically any biohazardous waste, they just take it and toss it there. It's not even really covered up that well. And in that, you can find tons of needles, blood, there's placentas, there's fetuses, there's all types of things. And this is in San Pedro Sula. The other one's in Tegucigalpa. This is in Bangladesh. They call it the landfill, but I don't think it had a lining, but it's in Matuel. And there they have like 138 or 70-something canisters all over the Bangladesh. And most of the people will recycle at the canisters, so they don't have to go directly to the trash dump. However, there's enough materials that end up in the trash dump that there's a community that's living there and working out of it. It's mostly women, and there's a lot of women. Men had left them, and they feel sort of rejected, and then they need to support their children, and they move into this line of work. An interesting thing about this that might change your diet a little bit is that one thing they look for is bones. And they look for bones because there's all these bone mills right outside the dump. And these bone mills crush it up into powder, and they send it to India, and India converts it into gelatin for pills or for desserts or whatever. On a good note, at this dump, there's security guards that will stop children from going into the dump, and they direct them to this woman where she has a school. So you won't find children working in the dump at that particular trash dump. This is in India. This is the very northeast part of India. This is the greater adjunct stork. And this was sort of my attraction to this particular landfill because this bird is very prehistoric. It's over like 8.5 feet wide in wingspan. And it loves trash dumps, and it loves low wetlands. And I had to go very far. I had to cross the border in Bangladesh to get there. And you can see the people living directly on it. It's very wet and mushy there. And the people here I found were very, very friendly. They were very welcoming. This is in Guatemala. There's a lot of complicated things to explain. I hope you're still interested in everything, but I think each one has its own interesting characterization. I'm on a cliff taking this photo of the dump, and on the cliff is a cemetery. And when there's high rains and mudslides, the cemetery falls down into the trash dump, and the people go into the graves and they try to rob all the jewelry and things like that. Also, through here, there's a river that runs through this, and it carries the water all the way to the ocean. And it's unpredictable how the water runs and the way the dirt is. So sometimes people fall inside and they die. You can look this up on Google right now. This is Zone 3 in Guatemala City. And also, let me go to the next frame. Here is another example of all that trash. And there'll be like a little truck like that. It'll fall into the trash, get lost, and by the time they find the person that already died. And this is where I am up on the cemetery, and that's where the cliff is, where it goes down. Now, water pollution is a big problem here, and it has to do with all the trash mixing with the water. So I drove 45 minutes from Zone 3, following the river, and I came to this village where people were still recycling the garbage that gets all collected and fallen into that area of the river. This is another area that's not connected to the river, but it just shows you that the water level rises, and then it mixes with the clean water, and people are getting very sick over here. This is the last one, and this is a happier note, is Colombia. When I went to Colombia, I noticed that I could not find an open dump site with informal workers working inside. So this is like a glimmer of hope that can change if we work on the level with mayor's offices or the government, if the government will even try. But I think working on the mayor-to-mayor office seems like a good solution. And what they did was they gave people an identity, an identification, and an actual job. So they receive a small pay, but they also get to collect the money that they recycle at the same time, because they're seen as doing a public service for the country. And then on the bottom, I looked for whatever informal work I could potentially find, and the only thing I could find was in Barranquilla, where there was a small group of drug users. This man is smoking crack, and he basically finds whatever he can on the way to the dump to feed his habit of the drug habit. And I actually see this in Nicaragua, that there's people that will recycle solely to feed their own habit. The ISWA Scholarship Program is an opportunity for change. Together we can change the lives of children who work at dump sites, who sing the sad song that I just showed you. The ISWA program acts as a life coaching system that offers many benefits to 48 informal working youths and their families. We get the kids to leave the dump and pursue an education. Meanwhile, we search for other working methods for parents who are willing. We have kids all the way from preschool to university. The kids receive tutoring, English, psychology, activities, special courses, and we welcome visitors or sponsors like yourself to come visit us. That's helped us a lot, actually. In just 2 years, the program has grown, and we've been seeing many positive changes with the kids, but it hasn't always been that simple. Like I said earlier, I work through some of the difficulties that they have to go through. And but little by little, we move along and we identify with one another through the program. This allows us to move forward together and to become smarter, and smarter together, and that includes myself. And next, I'd like to tell you about an ISWA kid named Melkin Javier Sanchez. He's 19 years old, and he grew up in Chichigalpa. Chichigalpa in Chinandega is an area where there's a lot of sugarcane, and sugarcane is a huge product coming out of Nicaragua. And they use a pesticide, and this is a controversial topic, but they use a pesticide that seeps into the water stream, and people are dying because of this. In fact, I have been to the trash dumps in that area, and there's a lot of ex-sugarcane workers, because if they receive the chronic kidney disease and they're examined by the company, they will fire them. And if they fire them, then they go looking for work in the dump site. So that's a controversial issue there, and those people are actually taking drugs to try to mask the tests so they can continue to work, leading them to get more sick. So I just want you for a second imagine Melkin, who lives up in Chichigalpa, and his family decides to move to La Chureca. Like, if you can imagine for a moment that you're so sick and your family fears that their kid has to work in those fields, that they would end up using La Chureca, a mountain of trash, as the better alternative than that. And this is Melkin's story.
My name is Melky.
Quisiera que los medios a mí también me escucharan para que el gobierno ya despertara y este basurero de una vez se acabara. Este trabajo muy duro nos tiene muy angustiados y nuestro destino es tan malo que nuestros seres churequeando ay muertos han quedado. De este trabajo comemos y
Esa. Ya le pusiste la cara encima. ¿Se te va a ir? Quítale el pescado.
Oh, pobrecito.
Mañana van al mercado a comprar.
Ajá.
Y se compran más cuestiones para echarle más pollo, pues. Sea de la marina.
Sí, se vino, chaval, dice que no le aguantaba.
Mi nombre es Melkin Javier Rivas Sánchez.
My name is Melkin Javier Rivas Sanchez. I was born in Chichigalpa, in the countryside. When I was 6, my family left for Managua to live in the Chureca trash dump. Because here we have a lot of illness from contaminated water. They put pesticides in the sugarcane, and these pesticides seep into the earth where our drinking water is. Then they run together, contaminating our water supply. You can't drink the water from the faucet too often, because there is a volatile illness called chronic kidney disease. Here, someone dies every day from this. La Chureca is an area with lots of smoke and contamination. But we didn't have many options, because here the people are dying and we were scared. If I had stayed here, I might have died too.
Yo vivía por
I
allá.
lived over there since I was 6 years old and started working when I was 8. Since I was little, I was always working. Now I live over there, the new barrio, Villa Guadalupe. They constructed all those houses for the waste pickers. On this side of the dump, there was a high, steep hill. When I was little, I would search in the dump for wood planks and 4 wheels to make a car. I would play with my friends and drive my car down this mountain to my house. When it broke, I would repair it, because it was the only toy I ever had.
Ahí en La Chureca, yo me encontré
I
a...
met Timothy in La Chureca, and he asked me if I was interested in receiving a scholarship to study. And of course, I accepted. He put me in a private school. He started to help me in many ways to leave the dump and follow my studies. But afterwards, I had to work at La Chureca after school to help my sister pay for her tuition, because we had no money in the house. I had to confess to Tim that I was back working in the dump, but since he also gave my sister a scholarship, I haven't been back since. Tim has a lot of work to do for all the kids here. He works at both trash dumps to help more children. He has helped this community a lot and taken a lot of kids out of the dump to place them in schools. I asked him if I could help him because he has helped me so much. Next year, he is going to put me in a school for technology and English. He found me a job working as a mechanic and bought my mechanic tools. He helps me with everything, so I help him in the office, with his car, and with other jobs.
Thank you. Melkin will really appreciate that, I'll tell him. Another family I wanted to share with you is a family of Marjorie. She has 3 kids in the ISWA program. Her story is complicated, so let me do my best. It's her mother, Alba, and she has 1 child in the program. Her daughter, Marjorie, has 3 kids, and her brother, Francisco, has 3 kids too. I met them because we had received more funding, and so I had to put my little disguise on and go up to La Chureca and look for more kids. And I found these 3 adorable kids underneath a carriage, and I asked where their parents were, and that's when I met Marjorie. Marjorie took me on a little journey because she didn't get a subsidized house, and she lived in a squatter community alongside the hill. Antonius actually came along with me, and also my mother, and I always bring people to see them. They're a little hard to get to, but they're worth it. And everything seemed to go okay. Like, I had a system where they could drop the kids off to a school before going up to the trash dump and then pick them back up on their way back. But there was like a morning session, afternoon session, so I had to buy a bicycle so the other parent could bring them. But we had a system going. But things changed after Marjorie's husband killed himself. He hung himself inside the house that they have made of trash. And this just turned everything upside down. At that point, the neighbors and the relatives of him blamed Marjorie and presented weapons, like threatened the family out of the house, and they were out on the street. There was another family that helped them for a while, and they were living there, but that didn't last so long either. The son in that family was also in a gang that they were staying with. Basically, everything I deal with there is very unstable. So I always have to, in fact, I have to go back October 2nd, and I know there will be a list of stories of things that I'm going to have to deal with. But, you know, sometimes those challenges are the things that make it most worth it, and I get excited about. Because in this situation, ISWA had to step up, and we offered them a house. It's only a rental until we found a more permanent solution, but because we're dealing with 3 families now, it was 12 people total, and the father had died, we moved them into a house in Villa Guadalupe where I work with the rest of the families. And that's been going really well because now the kids are back in school. And also, I also made the other two fathers, into security guards. So one is not going back to the dump. The other one is going sometimes, but working more as a security guard. And I'm still working with Marjorie to get her into her own school for next year. But let me allow her to tell her own story.
My kids are in the ISWA program. ISWA has given me the support I need. Thanks to God for putting me in your path, because the program has helped me and my children so much. I work in the trash dump and was bringing my children there. But since the day I met you and brought you to my house in Ciudad Sandino, you started to change my life and the lives of my children. My life changed before in Ciudad Sandino because my husband committed suicide. He left me alone with my children, and now my life has been a lot more difficult. The family of my husband threw us out of our house. They wanted to take my kids too. But my mother fought for me and gave me support. She helped me a lot to move forward with my kids and not have my children taken away. I had a pig pen with my husband, but it was alone. Later, all of my animals, my horse and carriage, everything was stolen by my husband's family. I was forced to move to the street. They burned my clothes, they took everything and threw me out like a dog. I had nothing, nor a place to live. I just moved along with my mum and my kids. But thank God I met Timothy. He gave me support, put my kids into school, and now things are more secure. The help he gave me is to keep my kids studying for their future, to one day be great people, and for nobody to bother them. I know they will do something with their lives because now one of them is graduating. Thanks to ISWA for buying the graduation gown, and to my daughter Cynthia, who is moving into her next grade too. It makes me proud, and Timothy too, because we are fighting for their future now so that they can move forward with their lives. Our lives are sad and painful because every day we work under direct sun or during rainy times in the dump. We work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We recycle materials to be able to survive. In the dump, we find food to eat for my children and my grandchildren. We have a problem with the husband of my daughter because he committed suicide due to many addictions. My son-in-law abused my daughter a lot, and also my grandchildren. Now, the ISWA program has provided us with a house because we lost everything from before. They threatened to kill my daughter and my grandchildren. I am afraid as a mother they would do something to them because now his family is following us and bothering us again. With the help of Timothy, we feel more secure and supported. With his help, the kids study, and now we have this safe and beautiful house.
Good afternoon, everyone. I feel very grateful because Timothy and ISWA helped in many different ways. For example, I obtained the documents I needed to get a job as an armed security guard. I feel grateful for the support also. There are no words to express the huge help you all offered us. Thank God you're with us.
Gracias, ISWA.
I'll tell them that you said that too. I'm actually looking for a permanent home for them. I'm still on a rental basis, and I'm going to move them to a more affordable house where I'm going to try to see if they can pay for part, and then I pay for the other part, and then try to wean them back into their own sustainability. But if anyone has any building type projects, you can let me know. I would be open to any type of alternative building projects. I would just need to buy the piece of land, and in that area it's very affordable. I want to just tell you a little bit about the atmosphere that we have to work in, and not just for myself that I have to work in, but for the children that have to live and grow up in this area. We have three ISWA kids, Moises, Araceli, and Roberto. Their father makes guns and sells the guns and also drugs. And it just happens that I have really great sponsors for those kids that come and visit them all the time. So they have a little bit of that support, but they're at a very, very difficult point because of the instability of the family dynamic. And I'll just tell you two quick stories. One time I had a professional film crew with me that was filming an interview, and it was all people from America. They had all these, like, the boom and the lights and all the stuff. And behind me was Roberto's house where the father lives and where they bring the recyclables. And I had to do a couple of takes, and I got like a good take, and then suddenly there was like a bang, and then everyone like looked surprised, and I turn around and he's like chasing someone with a gun, and then I turn back around and everyone's just gone. Like, I've never seen so many white people like vanish in 1 second as I did on that day, with equipment going into a van. With the same family, months later, I had two sponsors visiting that family, and the father was out of the house like with us, and I felt like, okay, he's turning a new leaf, everything is okay, but your past always precedes you. And in that moment, I saw an ice cream truck go by, like not a truck, but like a little bicycle. And I said to myself, we made eye contact, and then I said, okay, great, now I'm gonna have to buy ice cream for all the kids. But then he looked very clean, and he just kept going, and I was like, that's suspicious. And then suddenly, undercover cops came around the corner and started chasing the father between the sponsors and followed him through this little river of trash. A river of trash you'll actually see in this next video. And also in this next video, we're going to have Melkin again show us how people look for medical waste to use as crack pipes. Not something you probably expected at World Congress, but give you an example of all different spectrums of the rainbow.
Con esto, fuman crack.
With this, the drug users smoke crack or cocaine. They look through the trash for medical waste to make the pipe from. This other one is not finished yet. They put the rock here and they smoke crack. They sell the crack in all of this zone. The buyers would go to La Chureca to buy the materials from us. Now we have to bring this to them here because they can't enter La Chureca. It's dangerous with the police, security and everything, but we have to bring this from La Chureca to here. We have a problem with the water. The water comes when there is a lot of rain and it runs through here. It smells horrible. A lot of the kids in the ISWA program live here. All this sewage water runs through to Managua Lake.
So, all of these situations made me think about what can I do with all this instability. And my solution came to the ISWA Center. And what I had done is I bought a simple subsidized house off of one of the ISWA families. And they used that money to move to the Caribbean coast where there's no dump sites near them. And they have a plantation now, a small one, and they're making plantains, rice, and beans. And the only agreement was that if I were to do that, you need to keep your 2 kids in the ISWA program. And so we agreed on that. Oscar is going to graduate from high school this year, so that's really important that we follow up with his studies for university. And Sarah, she doesn't have the best grades, but she's in the private school, so that says a lot because there's a big gap between the public and private schooling in Nicaragua. And she's also taking English classes on the weekend, like with a real English school. So they stayed and the other ones left, and I remember the night I was supposed to come and pick up the keys, and I said, you know, I saw all this stuff they still needed to pack, and I said, oh, well, if you need me to come back to pick up the keys, I can come back later. And they laughed, and they're like, Tim, there's no key to this house. And I was like, I just bought a house that has no key in the middle of a ghetto. But didn't see that one coming, I just assumed. But so we had to close the door with a string and a rock. And I had work to do in Guatemala and Honduras in that moment. So there were like a 5-day window where there was no one there. And during that time, we had people come into the house knowing that it was just sold and vacant. And they stole the toilet and the electrical system and the little pipes for the water. They stole the back door and they broke the back wall. So when I came back, I had a project in front of my hands, and I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be playing this the entire time. To give you a little bit more of an illustration of the, these are the parents here, and this is the house and the way that we started. We didn't have a wall on that side. So little by little, the phase 1 construction was really all about security. So we made a wall there, and then we extended the barbed wire along the top. And then there was a lot of work to do in the front. We had to take out all the unevenness. We had to cut down all the trees. Another problem is that people were selling drugs out of the center at night. So we had to make sure that it was really sealed up so no one could go in and party and do drugs or sell drugs or anything. That's them extending the wall in the back. And this is the construction they started to do on the front roof. We had to do the roof first so the workers could work more easily. And then we eventually did the front gate and the front wall. And we got the kids involved too into the painting and the construction. I also contracted people from La Chureca to do the work, and they actually did a pretty good job. So phase 1 is almost done. I have still like a gap that I need to fill up because someone could potentially sneak in. But after that, thanks to SWANA, ISWA, MB, helping me with the auction and everything, we raised some good money, and I think we're going to have like a nice product in the end for the ISWA Center and get the logo up. I would like to make a plaque for all donors if you bought a photograph or you gave a donation. I would love to put a list up there, and of course you're all more than welcome to come. But I want to make this be a positive little place, in a place that looks and smells otherwise ugly. And I want it to be respected by the local community people. And there's the final product as it is right now. And those are our kids in front. There's Kat and James. They came to visit us in Nicaragua, and we had our first activity. So it was really exciting because it was like so much work, and you're working on things that should have been there, like a wall or like a floor. But this made it feel like, okay, I did something. We're getting somewhere with this. And this is like, I did a soft opening, just like a pop-up. I didn't tell the kids about this. I just kind of told them as I drove around, because I know they can migrate really quick and a lot at the same time. So I feel so much gratitude for the opportunity to stand here today and talk about the informal recycling communities at trash dumps. I feel like we have come a good ways, but we still have a long way to go. The life of the informal recyclers is a sacrifice and a service to the world without the majority of people noticing this. They are literally picking up our non-organic materials that would otherwise pollute our planet for decades. They may not view it that way because they are recycling to survive, but to me their actions are very commendable. But unfortunately, this has been occurring for generations, and in many cases, the children become the victims in this scenario. We cannot allow child labor to be the byproduct of our materials, even if the product has been used and tossed away. It is still our responsibility. It's been nearly 10 years since I've seen the first kid in the dump, and it still doesn't get easier to see and to deal with. And even though in La Chureca it got a little bit easier, it's a lot worse in a lot of other countries around the world. Is it too big of a step to ask people to start making common sense? To at least not allow children to be entering the trash dumps, to have some type of system to stop people? I've seen it happen before. I know it's possible. The world creates products that promote a growing economy, but ignore its contribution to its growing poverty. Materials produced will function in the now and may last only moments in our lives, but the material can cause prolonged pollution for generations, especially in underdeveloped nations where open dumping is common and a cleaner system of waste disposal needs to be enforced. Companies need to make more real environmental friendly products, as governments need to enforce stricter methods of disposal and cleanup. And us, as entrepreneurs or engineers or environmentalists or humanitarians, it's our responsibility too to keep this flowing and keep it working. We must close down all open dump sites, and during so, we must create formal work for the informal sector of waste pickers. This is a challenge. This change is very difficult. Not everyone will be satisfied, but I believe that these communities are usually large enough to create their own system of trade and economic growth independent of trash dumps. This is why educational scholarships, counseling, and life coaching can help balance the lives of the people who struggle during that type of transition. So I guess I had a lot of points to make this morning, but I think the one that I want most for you to walk away with is that whether it's 48 ISWA kids or 48 million kids around the world, let's stop making children be the victims in this scenario of our materials. Let's make a clear statement, and it's time to pass a universal law today. And just to end on this note,
Gracias ISWA! Gracias SWANA! Gracias
I would have had them say it all at the same time, but the kids wouldn't remember the 3 names at the same time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David, for this impressive presentation that touched all our hearts. I have to say a few things, but I would like to start. I have to give an answer to someone that asked me why I did not dress more officially today. Well, my answer is that this is a very official dress. It's ISWA scholarship program with my name. It's a gift from Timothy and the children in Nicaragua. I guess there is nothing more official for this special occasion. So I'm very proud to wear it, and I'm sure you are all jealous because you don't have a similar one. It's unique. I promise if we go like this in the scholarship program, next year there will be available a lot of shirts you can buy and donor as well. Now, speaking about this, well, as I was walking through the room, I think I saw David Bitterman bringing some news there, and I would like to ask him to join us. Besides making a fantastic conference, he brings some good news, I guess. So, David, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Antonis. Good morning, everybody. When I learned about the ISWA Scholarship Program and the just incredible work Timothy was doing, I thought to myself, this is something that SWANA has to get involved in. And then I found out that he was doing this incredible work in Managua, Nicaragua, where my father grew up. And then it became personal. And so I am pleased to announce here today that SWANA has raised some money to contribute to the Trading Trash for Education program that ISWA runs. Our chapters have been incredibly generous. Several individuals have been incredibly generous. And SWANA International is making a sizable contribution as well to this. So I am very, very pleased and proud, Timothy, to provide $45,000 from SWANA and its members.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Well.
Wow.
You can keep the check, I will keep the floor. Okay?
I'm taking this back with me.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I don't have words, but I can tell you that this is exciting because I'm going to show you, we're all going to show you how proud we are to accept this, but I mean to do so much with this. So it just really inspires me for another year and another year and another year, and to stick with these kids, and maybe one day we'll have a World Congress and one of these kids comes here. That would be amazing. I'm just putting it out there.
Okay. Thank you, Timothy.
So thank you. I appreciate this.
Well, allow me to close this session with a few more words. Most of them will have informational content. Well, I think we discussed a lot about closing the Dumpsites in this conference. And for all of us in ISWA, there are substantial experiences that have to be discussed further, analyzed, and somehow get the juice out of them and put them in practice. Especially, we discussed and we analyzed a lot our first success to close the Brazilian capital's dumpsite structural in Brazil in early January. This was an important success as it was the first practical proof that what we are saying is not something unrealistic. It can be done even in very difficult situations. What we are going to do this year is to analyze a lot what lessons can we learn from this practical example. How the local authorities dealt with the informal recyclers, how they prepare the new infrastructure, what's happening in the transit period regarding the social, financial, and administrative issues. And I'm pretty sure that Carlos, ISWA's Vice President, will work hard with the local authorities in order to ensure that we will deliver what we have been requested. Because what we have been requested from the local authorities is to monitor and follow up the progress in all the 75 indicators they have set to ensure that the dump site is closed. In other terms, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm telling you is that in Brazil, there is already a role model that deserves to be studied, and I'm sure our working group on landfills, and first of all, Luis Marineiro, his chair, will work a lot on this example to take global outcomes and make them available for all of us. The second I would like to tell you is that recently, ISWA, the national member of ISWA in Israel, the Dan Association of Municipalities, and ISWAG, the national member of ISWA in Belgium, signed a memorandum of understanding under which they will promote in common the Dumpsites campaign, and more specifically, they will create an educational center using Hiriya's facilities in Tel Aviv to provide training about the Dumpsites campaign, especially in African countries. I think this is good news. It will give us the opportunity to deliver our messages in a structured way, and very soon we will start to organize the first seminars. The third I would like to share with you is that we should continue to promote the campaign, but this year we will have 3 specific targets. Target number 1, we will start to deal with financial institutions. Financial institutions are completely unprepared and unaware of the difficulties and the problems involved to close dump sites. Actually, as someone told me yesterday, any commercial bank or even the development banks will never give money to close the dump sites because it's considered too risky and uncertain. However, there are alternatives and issues to be discussed to recover at least to ensure that part of the value will be recovered. We are already in discussions with some of these institutions, and soon you will learn more about it. In December, we are trying to go to the United Nations Environmental Assembly. This year is dedicated to pollution. I'm glad to inform you that today we received a letter from UNEP's managing director, who is confirming his availability to work with us and asking for a new meeting in Nairobi to set up how we move for UNEA. And last but not least, I would like to tell you that we are in an intensive phase of preparation, working with a very big company to prepare an artificial intelligence-powered system that will provide free help to municipalities involved in any technical, financial, or social question regarding dump sites closure and the development of alternative systems. It will take some more months to prepare and get the first results, but I can assure you that it will be very, very impressive. Having said that, I would like to thank all of you for the support to this project. I would like to thank all of you for the donorships and the support to the project for the children in Nicaragua. And I can assure you that for me, it's an obligation to understand what we are doing in Nicaragua and what we are going to deliver this year, not as a big step forward, but as a small step from our starting point towards our destination. And our destination is to make ISWA capable not to speak about change, but to deliver it. Not to discuss solutions, but to be able to inspire governments, municipalities, and local societies to achieve them. And I guess this will be, for all of us, the best way to go forward. We do have the ambition to leave our footprint in improving the lives of millions of people. And I'm pretty sure that if we continue like this, with such type of conferences and support from you, we will deliver. Thank you.